Spreadsheets challenge. So we are going to start off going to sheets.new. Sheets.new is how you can quickly create a spreadsheet. And once you create a spreadsheet, you can obviously give it a name. And the name we're using for today is line equations. And when it's saved, you can also move it into the appropriate folder in Drive. So we are in Google Sheets. In a spreadsheet, you've got rows and you've got columns. So when I refer to a cell, if I say A1, that means the cell that is in row 1 and column A. And I find it's much easier to use your arrow keys, so I'm just using the arrow keys on my keyboard to move around. It's a lot easier to do that. And if you accidentally go off the screen, you can use your scroll bars to get back to the main position. So we're going to create a line graph. So we're going to plot our Y values and our X values. And what we're going to do is we're going to start at 0. And the nice thing with spreadsheets is there's a lot of tricks that you can use to be really efficient and really quick. So this little square on the bottom right corner of cell A2, and I'm just going to zoom my view so it's a little easier for you to see. So this little square, if I hold Control on my keyboard and click and drag that square, what I can do is it will fill a pattern. So it's a really quick way to be able to fill in a pattern. I'm just going to do that one more time. So I'm holding down Control and I'm pressing that square and I'm bringing it down. So I've now got a pattern from 0 to 10. And let's say we've got another pattern where we're starting at 5 and going up by 5. Again, you can go to B2, and what I'm doing is I am holding down Shift and the down arrow on my keyboard to select those two. Now this time I don't hold Control, I just simply drag that, and what it's going to do is it's going to fill in the pattern. It recognized that it increased by 5, so it just increases all of them by 5. And just like that, I have my data, and I'm going to select it all. There's a couple ways you can do it. One way is click in cell A1 and drag down to B12. Another way is to click in A1, hold down Shift, and use your arrow keys to go down and your right arrow key to go over. So now that I've selected my range, I am going to insert a chart. And when you insert a chart, it's going to look at the data and try to figure out what type of chart it is. Now, it decided that this is a line chart, which is absolutely correct, but you could also select a scatter chart, and you've got all the different options. So with the chart editor, you can see all the different setup that you have, and you can customize. So the customize is really useful. You can change your colors. You can change your titles. So I could call this question 1, for example. And you can change your series. So here is the Y series, and it's on the left axis, so that's great. I can change my legend, and what I can do is I can also, all these different things I can do. So the axis title, maybe I want to change the size of that, so it's a lot more visible, easy to read. And with all of these axes as well, I can put in all the different information. If I wanted to have this from a different starting point, I could. So you've got a lot of options with how you are able to manipulate the graph so that it shows the data to the best way. So there's my graph. Now, it's pretty obvious from the graph that it's a linear graph, but one of the ways that we know things are linear is we look at the differences. So I've got my x value. So what I could do is I could take in cell C3 and I'm typing equals, which says I'm going to do a calculation. So I'm going to use my arrow key to select B3, the minus sign, and then my arrow key to move to B2 and enter. So this equation is taking B3, which is 10, and subtracting B2, which is 5. And that formula, I can do the same thing. I can drag that down, and what it will do is, it's hard to see on the screen, but each particular cell, it's just simply moving down and doing the calculation and subtracting. And you can see right off the bat that there is a consistent difference every single question. So that tells me that this is a linear equation. If I had a different equation, so let's just make a total change here. So in this equation, I'm going to go x squared. So what I'm going to type here is, again, a formula. I'm going to use the power command, and I am going to return this number raised to the power 2 and a bracket. Now, when I do that, I've copied it, and I'm going to paste it in here. So these are my y values. You'll notice it's no longer a linear equation. So this column is my first differences. So that is all the differences between these values. 1 minus 0 is 1, 4 minus 1 is 3, 9 minus 4 is 5, etc., etc. So with a quadratic equation, so if I'm doing y equals x squared, if I do my second differences, and same thing, I'm just going to go equals that value minus that value, and I can just drag this down to copy and paste it and all of that. My second set of differences are the same. So if it's a linear equation, my first differences are the same. If it's a quadratic equation, my second differences are the same. And it works out really nicely with the charting. It's a really quick way to do it. I can fill in a pattern really quickly. I can use a formula really quickly. So there's a bunch of different strategies with this. I'm going to do one more. So down at the bottom, I'm going to add another sheet. And this time, I'm just going to say if I have two different values. So I've got my x value, my y value. And if my x value is 0, 0, and my y value, if x is 20 and y is 10, even though I don't have as much data, I can still graph it. And that gives me my graph. And I can use this graph information to figure out, okay, so what is my slope? Well, my slope is my rise, so I'm going, my rise in this situation is going to be y2 minus y1. So in that situation, that's going to equal, that's my y2, and that is my y1. So my slope is 10. And then my run is going to be x2 minus x1. In this case, that's going to be equals 20 minus 0. So my rise is 10, my run is 20. So my slope, which is my rise divided by my run, is going to be equal to 10 divided by 20. So I have a slope of 0.5. So if I was to figure out the equation for this line, I know it's going to be a slope. M is going to be my slope, so that's 0.5. And B is my y-intercept. So I can see on the graph, I just happen to have a point that fits the y-intercept, so it's 0, 0. And if I go into my chart, and look at if I look at the trend line, I can add the label, which is the equation, and you can see Excel calculates the equation for me, which makes it really easy to check my work. So that fits exactly with what I was doing. And I could throw in any combination of numbers. So if X is 3 and Y is 0, all of a sudden it's doing it. And if I look at where it's intercepting the Y value, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to force my horizontal axis to be -10 and my vertical axis to start at -10. I can see that point right there is -1.76. So this is the beauty of this, is that I change the value and the graph automatically adjusts, and I can see the impact of it. And I should change my style so that everything goes. That way I can always see the y-intercept as long as the values are that small. And those are some tips for graphing.